I can still see like two small ones of it. Okay. All right. Good day to you all. Let me just do a test of the microphone. Like they say, testing the microphone. 1, 2, 3. Genevieve, confirm you can hear me. On behalf of the attendees, confirm you can hear me. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, fantastic. It's exactly 1 p.m. Nigerian time, and we are starting right to it. First of all, I would like to say welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone joining us from all parts of Nigeria, all parts of the Africa generally, from the western parts of Nigeria, I would say Ekabo. From the eastern parts, I would say the only Igbo I know, Ndewo. And of course, from the northern part, I would say Barka de Zua. To the first of its kind, 1.0 series, the pioneer of its webinar series, the Pharma Thought Leadership Series. You are most welcome. Well, just before we dive right into it, which we'll be doing in the next second, I just want to give us a little bit of some housekeeping rules. So we are most welcome. And as you know, it's a webinar, and definitely you can see us and the panelists. You can see everyone on the screen. And we would like you to engage us in the chat box. Please try to use the chat room to engage us. Tell us what's on your mind. Do what you want. Use the raise your hand out icon when it's time for questions. However, when it is time, when you have any thought process that comes to your mind, anything that you want to ask any of our distinguished panelists and speakers, I'll get to them. Please use the Q&A box, okay? Use the Q&A box, because we would only extract questions that will come from the Q&A chat room. And if we have need to have live questions, when the time comes, we would ask you to raise your hand. So use the icons on your screen. But one thing I promise you, at the end of today's session, I think we would all be fulfilled in a way, and we will all be triggered in our thoughts process. So you are most welcome. Just kicking right into it, I will be sharing the agenda with all of us for us to take a look at what the program today feels like. Basically, let me know if you can see my screen, and I'm trying to make sure that I take off some annotations and some. Okay, great. Just give me a second. All right, so you're most welcome to the first ever, like I said, the Pharma Thought Leadership Series. We are very much happy to have you, and it is powered by PBR Life Sciences. So we will be taking you through this agenda. So if you notice, everything is right on time, from the welcome of the speakers, which I have just done, by the way. So you're all welcome, the participants. And then, of course, I will be introducing to you in 3 minutes what we are doing here today. And then I will take my 7 minutes of your time and my time to introduce the best of what the industry has to offer, you know, in terms of our distinguished keynote speakers and experienced panelists. And then, of course, we'll get right into it for 15 minutes. We'll be sharing with you a case study. Very interesting, by the way. And then again, we'll take a few Q&A and then commercial break. And then the second session, which is where, you know, I know that it's also equally as exciting as the first one, where we would have our panelists join in and ask them various questions. And then, of course, we'll get your feedback, right? So let me get right into it. First of all, I just want to show you something, what the lack of innovation can do, right? See, the environment is constantly changing, and this has nothing to do with you or me. We have no influence over it, right? Technological evolution is changing, and there's a growing adaptation to the data environment. The market competitiveness is changing. The small players are becoming the big time players, and the big time players are not right there anymore, especially in the as we have observed in the pharma industry. Even HCP digital awareness and the adoption is actually really changing. And then we've seen patient behaviors are changing. Patients will look through they will look through Google, look through search engines right before they get to the doctor's office and right before they even take your medication as well. Even the economy. I woke up to the price of fuel 2-3 days ago, and I'm still trying to internalize it, by the way. And then even the channel structure that we utilize in the pharma industry is changing. And even the disease burden is also changing as well. Now, we don't want you to be like Kodak. Kodak was like the company, a technological company that dominated the photographic space, but refused to adopt changes when it came to digitalization, and they are nowhere to be found like before. Yahoo also refused to take over. They used to dominate in terms of the online advertising, but they did not innovate to cash in on, things like the search engine, right? And now Google is like the go-to search engine that we all go to. I want to ask you a question. On your laptops, most of you, did you even know that Xerox was one of the foremost makers of PCs and laptops? But if you ask us, most of us are using HPs and so many other brands, right? Because they did not cash in time. And we all know the good old Nokia story, right? Nokia was at the hub and of course was the first to create the cellular technology network, but did not adopt, the different softwares. And they are not where they are today. So these are the dangers of lack of innovation. But what I want to tell you is that at the heart of innovation is actually data. Because in order for you to innovate, you have to take in data-driven decisions. So why are we here? By way of introduction, as you're all aware, the pharmaceutical industry in Nigeria and the rest of Africa has undergone major challenges in the last decade and even in 2020, like you know, with a mixed impact for your brands and organizations, some positives, some negatives. And then at PBR Life Sciences, we hold the view that to advance the industry, there is a need to explore new approaches in line with the rapidly changing global dynamics, which I just explained in the previous slide. And to drive this shift, we're introducing to you and launching the Pharma Thought Leadership Series to trigger this discourse and create a paradigm shift for the industry by bringing in industry leads to share their experiences. So if you ask me, why are we here? This is why we are here. So thank you very much. This is the introductory part of the conversation. And we quickly move to, of course, introducing our guests. So by way of introduction, I have in fact, I feel so honored to be on this stage and share the stage with all of you and to be able to bring in this guest. Let's start with pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo. Honestly speaking, reading his dossier is difficult for us to actually compress it into this tiny little one-pager. He is the managing director of Merit Healthcare. He's a fellow of Pharmaceutical Science Society of Nigeria, a past chairman, Association of Industrial Pharmacists of Nigeria, NAIP, and the chairman of the Nigerian Academy of Pharmacy. And then he's also on the committee of the Drug and Substance Abuse. A little about his history. Let me take a breather. He joined Roche. He was in Roche as one of the pioneer members. He rose very rapidly, and then joined Coca-Cola afterwards as an area sales manager. And then he seconded to Femsta & Co. Limited, the makers of Limca and Goldspot, as a sales and marketing director back in 2005. Interesting. I don't know where I was by the time. And then he resigned voluntarily because he had so much to give, and then established Merit Healthcare Limited, a Nigerian-owned pharmaceutical importing and marketing company. He's an accomplished manager of human and material resources. You cannot mention pharmaceutical industry without talking about pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo. So here's he's going to be our speaker for today. Then it gets really exciting again. Okay, so I had a few short sessions with pharmacist Olayinka Suber, and honestly speaking, I left with mixed feelings. I was excited and happy to see such thought leaders in our space. But I left with mixed feelings because he had so much to give, so much passion, and I'm hoping that he would also be able to do some of these changes because it is really needed. He is currently the present country manager of Nigeria and also leads the cluster lead for West Africa for Pfizer Pharmaceutical, Sub-Saharan Africa. He is a fellow of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, of course, and then a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Pharmacy. He has contributed immensely to the growth of pharmaceutical health space and development, honestly. And I can tell you, he has a passion for us to have an effective distribution system. Okay, now I'm going back to his history, which is also equally long and was difficult to compress, honestly. Anyway, he joined Sanofi Syntelabo, presented by Chess Pharma, and then he was able to build. When he told me how he started with the company, I was deeply impressed at the sacrifices that were being made. And I think he needs to share some of these experiences today. And then when Syntelabo acquired Aventis to form Sanofi Aventis, he was also appointed as the pioneer. So I didn't even know the history of my former company as well, because I am a Sanofi alumni. And of course, thanks to PBR, I now know, right? In 2005, he joined Pfizer as a zonal director and general manager of the Ghana business and Anglophone West Africa. And then he joined Restral. He moved to Restral Consulting in March 2009 as the CEO of Franklin Covey, Nigeria. You need to go and learn about 7 habits of highly effective people. So you should know that he is also an effective person. Now he joined Fitzin in April 2010 as an executive assistant to the managing director. And later he became the general manager of business development and strategy planning. And lastly, he returned back to Pfizer in May 2011 as the business unit director for primary care. And of course, he's presently the country manager for Nigeria and cluster lead for West Africa. That is pharmacist Olayinka Zubair. And lastly, and not the least, our keynote speaker. I say this with so much joy that I have to be on the stage to introduce, of course, my CEO. I'm proud to say this. Besides, Ayodeji Alara is the most humble thought leader and the most humble personality I have seen in a long while. He is currently the CEO of PBR Life Sciences. He's an expert. Believe me when I say this. If you trust me, then just know this. He's an expert in the pharmaceutical industry, having worked across different spheres and companies, from GSK to Pfizer to AstraZeneca to May & Baker to Johnson & Johnson Medical to IQVIA in the United Kingdom. And before he started to say there is a gap, there's paucity of data, or we have unaggregated data, let us come and solve the problem. And then he joined and established PBR Life Sciences. So I've already told you all about his work history. He has been everywhere. He has seen across different spheres of the pharmaceutical space, and he'll be sharing a very interesting, part of, the Thought Leadership Series for us today. So this is pharmacist Ayodeji Alara. And so, distinguished attendees, pharmacists, and all scientists that have joined us, these are the leaders that we will be having today. And so, right into it, we are definitely going to stop here. And we will be going into the next part, which is the first part of the day. And that we will be sharing with you words from our speaker. And the first speaker we will be bringing to you will be pharmacist Ayodeji Alara, and he will be our keynote speaker for the day. He has 15 minutes to share with you, and then the question and answer will come in for 5 minutes, and we'll take it up from there. You are most welcome, sir. You can go ahead to share your screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie. It's a pleasure to share my thoughts. I want to first of all, appreciate my industry leaders and also teachers over the years. pharmacist Olayinka Subar. He's one of my mentors. He knows very well. I want to say thank you very much, sir, for joining the call today, even with the very short notice. And also to our distinguished industry leader, pharmacist Dr. Lulu Ojo, someone I've observed from afar. And his aptitude, degree of intelligence, passion for the industry is so inspiring. So I want to say a very big thank you, sirs. And I feel it's quite honored and humbled to have the opportunity to share the stage with you today. So again, thanks a lot to our audience that are joining today. What I would like to do in my presentation is to kind of go into the past, a bit in terms of looking at our industry in the last 40 years and taking a very practical, real-life example from an organization called Seba Gegi. I know pharmacists Lulu Ojo and also Olayinka Subar will know a lot of this history and also from some of our audience. And the reason why we are doing this today is captured from the thoughts of Maya Angelou, which some of us know. Again, she's late now, but she was a memoirist, a poet, a civil rights activist. And she made a very interesting statement that we can only know where we are going if we know where we have been. And this is the approach I would like to take today, to first of all go back in history to the pharmaceutical industry. What was the pattern of things some 40 years ago? Based on the past 40 years, are there new developments? Have things really changed? And if those changes have happened, how do we address them, going forward? And we're really honored to have two very senior industry leaders that can provide answers to this question. So basically, we will go back into the past, 40 years ago in 1983. I will take a quick snapshot and come back to present day Nigeria. How do things really look between then and now? So I'm going to take a real life story, and this is a real life story being a case study that was done by Harvard Business School in the year 1983. And this is very real because some professors from Harvard came to Nigeria in 1983 and went to this organization called Seba Gegi Pharmaceuticals to interview some of the leaders, one Mr. Nwankwo, back then, and some of the leaders to really understand the industry and how things were playing out. For those that do not know, let me go back in history. So Seba Gegi was formed in the year 1970 by the merger of two organizations, one being Cyber, and obviously the other one being Gegi. However, down line in 1996, this organization merged together with Sandoz to form the present-day Novartis that we all know quite well, who also still play in Nigeria. So this is what happened. In August of 1983, some of the leaders in Seba Gegi needed to take a decision. And the decision back then was a major question of if they should develop and launch a new product called Fevex back then. Fevex was going to be a chloroquine formulation, but in a capsule form, right? And this is because, like we all know, chloroquine is quite bitter. And back then, the market was really large for anti-malarials and chloroquine. So they wanted to formulate this capsule, called Fevex, but it was a decision to be taken in this meeting in August of 1983. And in doing that, the team decided to look at the Nigerian space, right? For example, back then, some of their finding is that, the population of Nigeria was then 95 million. 50% of the population was aged 15 and below. And as I read out some of these numbers, I also want us to think about it in terms of what is happening today. How different is the industry today than it was in 40 years ago? And based on that, for us to begin to think and say, how do we go forward in terms of product development and also life cycle management? 95% of Nigeria's export was oil, 80% revenue was based on oil. And back then, a lot of the population was residing in rural areas, with about 20% and living in urban areas. Obviously, I know one of the numbers that, I guess all of us on the call today are not happy to see, but back then the exchange rate was $1 to ₦1, literally. But obviously a lot has happened between then and now. Now I'm going to spend a bit more time here, also keeping in mind the amount of time Julie has for me. So back then, the pharma industry, this is how things looked like. And this is what the team also had to analyze in Cybergegi. The first one is that the size of the pharma market was about $330 million, right? So this included both prescription drugs and also OTC. Right now, the market is about $1.2 billion or about 1.3 trillion based on the exchange rates. One very important fact as well, back then is about 50% of drug supply was based on local manufacture. In other words, 40 years ago, half of every drug consumed in Nigeria was manufactured locally. In terms of the most active drug classes, or what you call the most active market segment where companies were selling products, really this was mainly anti-malarials, anti-infectives, analgesic, cold, allergy, and anti-diarrhea. And I think to a very large extent, this still reflects the pattern of what we see in the market today. A lot of the top 10 brands in the market in terms of market leadership are mainly anti-infectives, anti-malarials, and just a few around pain as well. So really in terms of the disease class, what we noticed in terms of what happened 40 years ago is still similar to what is happening today. The main difference perhaps will be non-communicable diseases like hypertension and diabetes that are increasing. Back then as well, there was a lot of capacity when it comes to the private hospitals and also pharmacies as well. Sorry for the change. Yeah, pharmacies and also hospitals. Just to round up on this page, in terms of the new developments, what we notice is that the population has increased, the market size has increased, but some other fundamentals are still the same, really. 70% back then was OTC, 30% POM, and right now is kind of the opposite. So prescription drugs are about 70% right now compared to 30% back then. I would end this slide by talking about one very area which I hope that our speakers will also address today, and that's the issue of distribution. Back then, 40 years ago, distribution was quite unorganized with many middlemen. And back then, we had about 800 pharmacies, which are about 6,000 now. So this is what the situation 40 years ago in terms of the industry. In terms of how companies structure themselves, the strategy and all of that is still similar to today, right? So back then, companies were structured based on business units. So you have ethicals, OTC, and that is still similar today. Also back then, a lot of the promotion was on TV, radios, branded t-shirts, caps, and all of that. And even when it comes to the sales force structure. So going back then in terms of the market, in terms of the structure, it doesn't look like much has changed, and I hope we'll discuss more about this as we go. So what is the reality today? A lot is happening. Just like Julie said, we're seeing a lot of technology. We're seeing health techs coming up. We're seeing population explosion, evolving technology, talent migration. A lot of the R&D pipeline that we also see by the multinationals, especially in Europe and North America, are now looking more like diseases in the developed countries rather than developing countries. So a lot is changing, but the question really that we are asking is that is pharma changing as fast as the market is changing and also as far as the technology is evolving? When it comes to the market size, like I talked about before, there's a lot going on, but again, in terms of the active therapy segment, it's still looking the same. If you remember what I showed about 40 years ago, we still have the anti-infectives being tops, we have anti-malarials, which are anti-parasitic, and we also have the pain segment. So things still look quite similar, really, compared to how it was in terms of diseases. I'm going to end with this slide. This kind of looks at the healthcare space in terms of the development. So we're seeing a lot of tech, a lot of investment in tech. In the last about 2.5 years, there's been up to about $40 million invested in health tech alone. We're seeing companies also going into clinical trials, even locally in Africa and in Nigeria, and also digital transformation and product security. So lots is changing, but again, in the industry, when it comes to pharma, how should we respond to this? 40 years ago, compared to now, like I said, a lot still looks quite similar. But really, how should we address the market as it is now in terms of how we go to market with new products? How do we go to market with managing established brands? How do we deal with distribution infrastructure? And even how do we adopt technology in the pharma space? So I look forward really to hearing from some of our leaders on the call today in terms of how we can innovate and change so that pharma doesn't look like a dinosaur industry compared to others as well. So I'll stop there, Julie. I hope I kept your time.
Fantastic, sir. You did a great job. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we also just extracted some a particular question from the Q&A chat box, right? But right before I ask that question, I want to ask you a question that comes to my mind. So with all of this, you took us back to 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I clearly see, like, I don't feel there's so much changes that has really happened, and that is quite worrisome for me. So where you sit right here, right now, daring to pick at the future for pharmaceutical industry now, let's just limit it there. What are the changes that you see coming, and how do you think pharma companies should respond to it as regards optimizing their product life cycle? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I think first of all, for pharma, we need to reduce how we operate in isolation. We need to kind of engage more. So for example, we look at the fintechs, right? How are things evolving? We look at digital health tech, how are things evolving? Even organizations like PBR that are going into data, that are going into tech, there should be a bit more engagement, right, between the established pharma and some of these emerging technologies, emerging markets, even speaking with potential investors in international community that are interested in Africa and Nigeria as a strategic market. So first of all, I think pharma needs to engage more. We need to try to overcome the pressure, of our daily operations. I know a lot of the marketing team, sales team, and sometimes even the general managers, are so concerned about how do we meet the numbers this quarter, how do we meet the numbers this month, but rather, can we be a bit more externally focused, right? Can we engage more, go out and talk more? That is one. Number two is that I see a lot of venture capital investment coming in to disrupt the market. Yeah, especially in two areas. The first one is in the area of health tech, right? For example, we've seen Pharma and some of these players in the market raise thousands of dollars, in terms of disrupting the market from a distribution perspective and also investing in product. That is the first one. Second also is there could be some potential investment in manufacturing. And these investments are going to be a threat to Nigeria if we don't manage it properly. And what I mean by that is that we have the Africa Free Trade Zone law that has just been passed. And some of these countries in Africa, like Morocco, like Egypt, even Ghana and Kenya, are really investing in their pharma manufacturing. If care is not taken, the imports of product and drug supply may shift from India to other African countries coming into Nigeria. Whilst we are very open to other colleagues in Africa and other countries in Africa, I think that a lot of our industry players should start looking at potential financing opportunity beyond the government to talking to investment firms in Europe and the rest of the world for low interest rates to build this manufacturing sector before the big giants in Africa really come up.
Okay, wow, really interesting, sir. Thank you very much for that. I think we are trying to also keep to the time, so I'll keep the other questions towards the general Q&A session so that we can quickly brush through some of the things that we have planned for the day. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Ayo, for some of these thoughts thought-provoking, or let me say thought-triggering, because honestly, we need to move past just provoking our thoughts. It should trigger some actions and implementation. So thank you very much, sir, for this. We'll come back to you much later, but we want to infuse the rest of the other experienced leads in the industry space so that we can also manage the time effectively. Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo.
Thank you very much. I look forward to listening to Dr. Lolu Ojo and also Mr. Olayinka Subara. It's a pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're right before we are able to, get in, while we try to check with pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo on his, ability to reach out to us here. We are launching one of the first poll. You would see a poll on your screen and your device. Please do well to, respond, and let's see how it goes, because we're going to take some of these responses towards the end of this series, and then we'll also address some of it. So, pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo, sir, please confirm you can hear me. Sir, can you kindly unmute and confirm if you can hear me?
Oh, yes, Julie, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic.
I was trying to attend to your phone and the whole thing just took me away, but at least now I can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. I am so honored to have you here. And sir, we just put you on a kind of like let's just call it the hot seat. But you see, you have so much to give, so much wisdom, so much passion, and we just want to glean from you just a little bit. So, sir, I have something directed at you at the moment, sir, in terms of, my line of questioning. First of all, I want to ask you, in your up to 2 decades in the pharma industry, what are the different evolutions you think the industry has gone through? What have you seen, from the past, and what is happening now, and what do you think may likely happen in the future? So I know you can't predict the future, but we understand that, with your wealth of experience, you would be able to predict some of the few things based off of the past. So what have you seen in terms of evolution of the pharmaceutical industry? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Let me first comment that what Ayodeji did is fantastic. I really love it. And he has taken us back 40 years. And I'm proud to say that I've been part of those, what he has recorded in the past 35 years. So it's a good thing that we can feel it, particularly the story of Sibagaige that he has given to us. Yes, it is so easy and quick for us to bemoan our current state and stuff like that, which I agree, and I will talk about it. But again, we have moved on in certain areas. Today, we have about 200 active manufacturing concerns that are much better than what they used to be due to the activities of the regulatory authority. At least today, we can talk about some manufacturing facilities that are already WHO certified. What that brings in, they need to tell us. But the truth of the matter is that in our system today, we have organizations that are WHO certified. Then in the downstream sector, there has been a lot of changes. Today, we can talk about chain retail organizations like EdPlus, like MedPlus, and some other things. So we really need to appreciate our pioneers in that feed, people like Buki George, people like Joke Bakari, and others, that are coming up. I can talk about an organization having 30, 40, 20 branches, that are bringing healthcare to people. So, but by and large, we are still a giant ball of opportunities, given our very huge potential demand base. It's something that we really need to look into. And the this path that your organization PBR is taking is a very good one. I really love it. I love it to hear that. And for people to know that the time it was that 50% of our consumption is manufactured here in Nigeria. Today, wow, we can only boast about 30%. Even that 30% there's a big question mark on it, because the input to produce those 30% are actually important. Wow. There are many things that we have tried to do, but what I want to say is that we have moved on certain parts, but we still remain a work in progress, so to say. And all we need to do is to ensure that we hold our hands together and get it done, particularly from government point of view. Manufacturing will happen if government wants it to happen. I've said to people that, look, have you asked yourself a question? Why is it that Dunlop, Michelin, that used to produce in this country, they've left? So what happened? But for us in the pharmaceutical sector, medicines availability is a security issue. So we must find a way to improve what we are doing. And I've been part of it all along. And I want to say that this conversation is good for us, and we must continue to talk, but we must do the best we can to get ourselves off the reality of the realm of talking and go to the reality of doing, and making sure that when PBR will do a seminar of this nature in some years to come, our story will change. At least for now, unless you want me to talk more on some aspects.
Okay, so that's fantastic, sir. In fact, I was going to ask you a follow-up question, but I think somehow you answered it, because I saw that from your responses, there's still a lot of positives that we, in terms of our evolution, there's a lot of positives happening. Now, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question in terms of, are we going at a snail speed? Is it that is it too much for us to go faster? But then again, you were able to answer it also. So I don't think I would even want to continue with that question again. So thank you very much, sir. It's also interesting to know that you were also part of pioneering some of the things that were already shared prior to this time. Yes, sir.
We've seen a lot. And we wish things can get much better than they are now.
Okay, sir. So, sir, in terms of companies, trying to, support their brands during the product life cycle, when, they're trying to manage their brand. For years, the industry has gotten used to the word guesstimates, when it comes to evaluating the market and their brand performance. So what limitation or downsides has this proposed to the industries and companies? What are the limitations to using guesstimates in planning your brand? Because we understand that you are someone that is currently managing a very, very growing and fantastic company in terms of manufacturing, in terms of importation, marketing, and sales. So what are the downsides to using guesstimates to plan?
Well, it's claimed it's a challenge that we have faced for so long. And we have tried the best we can to gather together at, if I remember, there is something we call PMAG audit. PMAG audit, that is members of the pharmaceutical manufacturing group of the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria. We gather ourselves together where we share our figures so that we can have an idea of what we are doing, because using guess estimate doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for us. And marketing, carrying out marketing without data, I've said it to people, it's like going to Benin from Lagos by 9 p.m. without your headlamp. You're just moving, you just go, you don't even know what you're doing. But when you have data that are reliable, that you can work with, then it helps in your planning. It helps you to evolve strategies that can, give you some competitive advantage, in the market, in the segment that you have chosen to operate. It's a good thing that we somehow now, at least, we are getting little things, but it's still little things. These data are available. They can be mined. NAFDAC take our records, everybody's record. So somehow, if we can work with NAFDAC, we can create a pool, of some of these figures to be able to do something. And with organizations like yours, if we can really come together and get our regulators to back us up, we should be able to know how much of ACT comes into this country, from where and stuff like that. So from there, we'll be able to plan what to do. Antibiotics, we need to know how they evolve, how they come in, how much come in, and stuff like that. Guest estimate, we've been doing it since I was a product manager way back in 1993. After we have gotten figure from some people who are operating with us, then we say, hey, we assume that all the things we have gotten is just 30% of total. Therefore, we approximate into this, into that. And that does not really work. It doesn't give you what you have. And let us look at it. When Ayo was talking, he said the size of the market will be about 1.3 billion right now. I've have reviews that give it 1.5 billion, some will give it 2 billion, some will give it 3 or even more. But the question is, we don't actually know exactly what these figures are. Because one, we have a very large informal market, a very, very large informal market that we really need. But somehow we are the one to come up with a way to find out what to do.
Okay, fantastic. So to be honest, one of the analogies you used has been creating a lot of reactions.
It's not today, Julie. It's not today, Julie. It has been something we've been shouting about. We've been talking about that. Look, how can you be doing marketing without data? Yeah, so it's crazy. But hey, this is what we have found ourselves doing. But somehow, at least we get some snippets that allow us to have something that can give a resemblance of the situation, of the reality of our situation.
Exactly, sir. And I definitely do not want to go on a trip to Benin without a headlamp. I definitely do not want
by 9 p.m., not even during the day, you can, but by 9 p.m., you're leaving Lagos, go to Benin without your headlamp by 9 p.m.
No, sir, I wouldn't want to do that as well. So thank you very much, sir. In fact, the reactions from there is a high engagement level from our attendees to some of the words of wisdom that you've been giving to us. So we'll allow you to take a glass of water and to just cool down, because we have just, taken some, knowledge of you for the moment. So we would allow you to hold on a bit, and then we'll come back to you, sir, for the final questions and then for the final words for the industry. But I want to say thank you very much, sir.
You must have seen me with my glass of water.
Definitely, there is no way we would glean from your wisdom and you will not need water, sir.
Thank you.
In fact, we're going to trademark that analogy you gave. I'm hoping we can trademark it. Pharmacist Dr. Lolo Ojo. I've seen it already flashing in from our team members. So thank you very much, sir. Millie. Okay, so time up. Yes, Genevieve from the back end has told me it's time up for this session. So, sir, we'll come back to you for the final questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
All right. So I'm hoping that our next speaker is putting on his Nike shoes and getting ready to come on board because we really want to, listen to words of wisdom from you. So my first meeting with you was so enlightening, honestly speaking, and I was really happy to note that we have serious backbones in the pharma industry from you. Now, taking a glean on them, let's look at while pharmacist Dr. Lolo just spoke about, manufacturing, let's go to the other important aspect as well in terms of the distribution system, because it affects the pharma industry, right? So the drug distribution system in Nigeria requires significant interventions, and industry stakeholders have reason to find solutions to this. So how do you think the tech community can develop solutions to solve this problem? In what particular area, because tech seems to be attracting a lot of interest among the young professionals we have on this forum. So in what area can tech, the care community help with our drug distribution system, as you know. So over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Julie. And I want to thank PBR for the opportunity to bring me onto this platform for discussion. I've had my senior colleague, pharmacist Lulu Ojo, spoke excessively. But before going into what tech can do in drug distribution, if I take a look at the journey of Ciba-Geigy that Ayo Alano took us through, I want to take some learning from that. Okay. As at the time, the Ciba-Geigy, at the time of this, journey, that company used to have a manufacturing plant in Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
And that plant was located in Ota. They were one of the biggest producers of anti-malaria and some other molecules. Today, that plant is producing Indomie.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at most of the manufacturers that you have in Nigeria, the backbone of them were all formerly multinational companies. Roche, Swiffer, Pfizer, name it, and many more. And most of the manufacturers today in Nigeria are still making molecules around what you have identified as the top therapeutic area of medicine. So, but let's learn from the global trend and the story from Ciba-Geigy. The diversion of Ciba-Geigy out of Nigeria is not just because they don't like the environment. There was a global trend where you see most of the company begin to merge. Ciba and Geigy came together. Ciba-Geigy came together with Aventis, and they are all leveraging on their capacity to improve on development of drug, which is the driver of the pharmaceutical industry. So where we are today in Nigeria, manufacturing is highly encouraged, and I support it for essential health medicine that we have seen being done. But for us to have a future of development in our therapeutic approach to treatment, then we need to think global. We need to think beyond what we have. So let me go back to your question of how we can use technology to drive distribution. Technology will not be useful if you have no structure. So where we are today, it will be technically impossible to deploy technology to drive it, because the distribution is mainly driven significantly from the out of normal structure. I don't want to talk about the chaotic distribution in detail, but just to let you know that 60 to 70% of our drug distribution today are going through the illegal distribution channels. And those markets evolve as a result of business need. So for us, before we can think about technology involvement, we need to first of all change what the rule of the game is. What is this distribution model that we expect to see in Nigeria? The government of Nigeria, in association with Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, NAFDAC, and all other stakeholders in the drug distribution, were magnanimous. And there was a 2-3 years work where we have a national distribution guideline that was introduced, gazetted, and government backing hasn't have that document. The only time you can introduce technology is if we bring that document to life. And personally, bringing that document to life has to be done by the industry, because it is we that regulate the industry through the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. We have looked at it, what should be a mega distribution, or what a retailer should do, a wholesaler should do, and how the hospitals should do the drug. When you want to talk about technology, I can give you an example of what I've seen in Ivory Coast and I've seen in Senegal. As a pharmacist, you don't need to leave your office. You go onto your computer, you send your out of stock link to your preferred wholesaler. And every retail pharmacy have a preferred wholesaler that they need to send to. And every wholesaler have a network of retailer. When they have a new stock coming into the market, they send a mail to advertise the new stock, and the people bring in their dog. So you can trace every pack of the product. We are working on a model where we can do a traceability project, which if comes to life, then technology can ride on that, whereby it becomes a normal thing that a retail pharmacy do not wake up to go to a market to start buying drugs. That's some of the power of technology that you see today with companies like Amazon. A lot of transactions going on that platform. People are using it to design products. When they realize that the ordering of things is happening a lot in this segment, then they design product to meet that. So we need to, first of all, put a structure around our distribution.
Okay. And
putting a structure around it means that we need to define a new model of distribution, execute on it, and first, starting with the professional ourselves, ensure that it is implemented. And if that is implemented, then the unorganized drug distribution platform, they have a choice to move out of business or to organize themselves to fit into the new model. You can never fight an old model to change a thing. If you fight it, the model will fight you back. It is normal. But when you set a new model, put your resources behind it, and back it up with legislation, the old model will conform to it.
Well said,
We've seen today on some modern wholesalers, we call them in our sector, leveraging technology, opening online ordering platform. And these are just the beginning of it. Retail outlets are also doing that, but on a holistic level, to have the maximum benefit of technology, we need to structure our industry distribution pathway. I'm likely, I have the tendency of speaking too much on this topic, but I'll stop at this point to allow you to ask more questions.
So it's driven by passion, and it's a need. There's a gap that you have noticed, that we have all noticed. And so, yes, we would love to have you speak longer, but just because of time, yes, we'd have to stop you a bit here. One of the things I gleaned on from what you have just mentioned is you cannot fight an old model. You institute a new model. Or rather, you cannot fight an old model. It will fight you back. Rather, why don't you institute a new model, and the old model would adapt to it? Well,
the old model become the reference standard. Exactly. And everybody, you will be amazed that people operating in the old model will organize themselves to operate in your new model.
Exactly, sir. So that's the follow-up question I have for you. So now, in the last 15 years, we have launched brands because we have product managers here, we have business development managers, all from various sectors, in the pharmaceutical space, right? So we've launched brands 10 years ago. What do you think we can do differently if we want to launch our brands successfully in this time and now?
Well, I'll share experience from my career level. When you talk about launch brand, my organization pioneered calcium channel blocker amlodipine. Oh, yeah. And when we introduced that molecule, there was a lot of investments in terms of brand development to say, what is the understanding of that therapeutic area, to understand how the product will play in the management of cardiovascular. So it's not only selling the brand, teaching and educating the healthcare community about the need for proper management of hypertension, which before was purely to crash the blood pressure using amlodipine and all of that form of a molecule, which surprisingly, you'll be surprised people are still using today. So there was an education for the new need for that molecule, and it became embraced. So what you see today that people call launching new brand is just repackaging those molecules in new name. Those are not brand development. And that is why you see a lot of struggle, because people have no story to say about a brand. So, and if you look at our industry, traditionally, even the big players, the MNCs, what is driving the revenue today? They are the brands of the 30, 20 years ago. The new molecules are not coming in. And when the new molecule comes in, the idea of doing a selling without developing is hindering the growth of those new molecules. How many companies today have brought in completely new molecules into the market? It's a copy of the old existing, and the landscape will not develop. So we need to understand, first of all, brand development involves a lot of investment. And we are very fortunate because of the low level of adoption of insurance in our part of the world. Brands do not die. Because once you develop a brand, you see some of the brands that are selling in mega millions today, you'll be wondering, why would somebody still be using a tetracycline, amoxicillin at this generation, and the volume is massive, when the therapeutic landscape have moved? Now it takes a lot of investment to move into that landscape. And for that to happen, you need to understand the disease area. And you need to do a lot of ACP education, not selling, education. So it's a big topic you have put on the table now, that if you talk about brand development, then your 1 hour is not enough.
Of course, sir. Of course, sir. And that is why this is the Pioneer series. So it's the first of the series, and then we'll definitely have follow-up discussions. So like I did with Dr. Lolu, I'll give you time to take a sip of water or coffee for you to just, relax a little bit. I'll come back to you with the last set of questions. So thank you very much, sir. And to the entire attendees, thank you to all of you. Your engagement has been really, really high. But we want to have a little bit of commercial break. I think I've been given a 4-minute commercial break. So we will be utilizing this 4 minutes very effectively. So we want to pay, homage to the sponsors of this event through a commercial break. So, and I will be taking the commercial break, by the way. I hope I make a very good advertising agency on this commercial break session. So my 4 minutes starts now. You see, let me, hold on, please. Let me just take off some floating. Okay, great. Now, we need to start making data-driven decisions, really, because if, like Dr. Lolu said, you would not want to drive to Benin by 9 p.m. without a headlamp. I wouldn't want to do that. So it's as simple as saying, if you want to make decisions, you want to, manage your brand within the product life cycle, you need to follow you need to have data-driven decisions. So constantly analyzing the big data to enable, and this big data we are saying is we are constantly building it. Honestly, we are constantly gathering data from different sources, right? The volume, the veracity, the variety is large. We need to make sense of it in order to move forward. So we need to make educated decisions. We need to develop further products and produce more effectively. Now, there's a quote that says that efficient analysis of data from multiple sources helps pharma businesses identify market trends. You need to utilize multiple sources. You cannot be straitjacketed in one direction. And then you want to develop targeted marketing strategies. Machine learning algorithm can be used to predict the future of sales. Yes, it can. I understand how unstructured Nigerian market is, but to be honest, when you put pieces together, when you would definitely be able to come up with patterns. I want to share with you a little bit of story. I hope my 4 minutes is not almost up. I don't know how many of you have seen this series before. I started watching it a long time ago. It's a very old series on Netflix. It's called House of Cards. It has to do with the US presidency and how a woman rose to power. It's highly political, but I just wanted to bring some sense out of what happened. Now, you see this series. It was one of Netflix flagship programs. They utilized this series because they understood the data. In 2013, right, this series was responsible for the continuous subscription on Netflix alone. How did they know? They understood that from the data they gathered, they understood a pattern that they noticed. Netflix knew that the show would be a hit even before it aired. See, pharmacist Suber said something. He said some of the newer molecules we are bringing are not even as thriving as, and we are even existing on the older molecules. So in order to plan, we need to make sure we make sense of data utilization. Netflix was a success because of one of these flagship brands, right? How did they do it? Was through data. They analyzed the data set carefully. They noticed that people liked Kevin Spacey, and then they liked the director and some of the things. They put it together, and you know what? They brought these 3 people together in this show, and it became a hit instantly. So they knew it was going to be a success. They were able to predict. So this is what analyzing big data can do for us. Now at PBR Life Sciences, we'll support you with the data gap. What do? We are a contract research organization. We leverage technology, people in terms of transforming the healthcare system with our real world data, like all year, all round. Let me give you an example of what real world data means. As at 9 p.m. on the 20th of March, Julie Pharmacy did this. Break it down to you the way it is, right? And we use technology. And one of the most important data assets we have as a company is our people. And we have in-house pharmacies with competencies in AI, data sciences, technology, marketing, consulting, startup advisory. What do? We give you unprecedented market data using our real world. We leverage on it. We can do primary market research. You can send us into the market, and we will tell you what the doctors are saying objectively. The age of sending out your reps to go and do some of these things, right? While they are busy thinking about so many other things, can give you a kind of distorted figure. But when you send a very objective, agency to get that done, yeah, we'll do that for you. And then when it comes to marketing consulting, advisory, and all of that, we can help you also do that as a third party, because we have the data, we have the big data, we have the real world data. We have thematic areas where we can support the pharmacy industry, the consumer healthcare, the public sector, consulting, and even the academia as well, which we have also equally started. What are the solutions? We have our Versus solutions, which is the real pharmacy data. I'll show you what it looks like. We have our Sonus that can give you insight into what doctors are thinking. Market Sizer, multi-year, what is coming into the country. Import data year on year will help you make sense of it so that you can understand what to do. Invitio, do you want to understand a disease burden, a disease pattern? We will do that for you as well. Bespoke, if you have a particular challenge, and we will sit with you and sort it out for you. Bespoke primary market research, and then pharmacovigilance solution, helping you stay compliant with regulation. With the regulations rather. We have our mobile apps that we can integrate for you and help you collect data. Remember, pharmacovigilance is 24 hours. How many of us, within all the bottlenecks within our companies, is able to comply to that? If you open your books, how many of such reports are there? We're not saying you should look out for this report, but it's good for you to have this. We will take care of it for you. Okay, so this is an example of our Versus solution in over 500 pharmacy softwares, with over 800 brands and 10 million transactions. We will make sense of it. We will tell you in over 16 states of Nigeria, by the way. We will tell you what is happening, competitive analysis. We'll tell you wholesale price, retail price, profit analysis. We will do all of that for you. You will be able to do your brand planning with the real understanding of the market. And of course, PBR has recognition in Africa and in Europe. We were recognized across the London Business School with the Entrepreneurship Lab, and then we're selected as among the first top 40 in the Health Tech Hub Africa, sponsored by Novartis, Bridge for Billions, Health Tech Hub, and of course the Global Funds. And of course, our data is sitting, and the integrity of our data is sitting with the Amazon Web Service. So we are actually making sure that we protect the integrity of the kind of data that we give to you as well. And then of course, as at last month, our DrugMed app was selected as top 3 at the AU-EU event sponsored by Sanofi Africa Healthcare Challenge. So this is the kind of company that we are, and what we do. We are still helping with capabilities in the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to mentorships, internships, engagement, speaking, and webinars. Call us in for your corporate trainings, your startup meetings. We have these competencies in-house. We have worked across various companies and even most of your companies as well. So we can help you with sales, marketing, and data. Last but not the least, we have trained 6 pharmacists in Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya on data science for pharmaceutical data analysis. These are some of the trainees that we have utilized, and we are also going to continue to. We can train your product managers, you train your team members as the need arises. Okay. So this is my last slide. Why are we better positioned to support you? Because we have the real world data, We have strong local knowledge, and then we have cross-functional expertise. We also are able to give you solutions that are fit for purpose. We will come to you the way it suits you, right? We have strong HCP, patient, and channel relationships. We have supported clients across various pharmaceutical companies. And by the way, this is even not very, very much outdated. Our client base is actually higher than this. So we will give you deep, localized insights and market knowledge with global best practices. So in conclusion, we should stop quoting global data for our local issues. I've said this before. COVID taught us that. We should stop it, because when the world was having a different pattern, it was different with us in 2020 for Africa and for Nigeria. We didn't die off of the disease as was expected. So that shows you that we can take a look, a glimpse at it, but honestly speaking, it's not all the time we should utilize the global data. We should just notice the patterns, but we should get our own patterns and data. All right, so that's the end of my commercial break. That was the fastest commercial break I've seen in a long time. So we're going to draw in Mr. Ayo now. Mr. Ayo, we want you in. This is the last and final question. We also want pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo, and then we want pharmacist Olayinka Suber. Now, the question is going to be the same for all of you. There are young colleagues listening in on this webinar. What advice would you give on how they can navigate their path in the pharmaceutical industry? Because a lot of things are changing, right? The climate is changing, the needs are changing. A lot of them are working for various pharmaceutical companies. How can they evolve within their company, and what should they do? How can they add value to their organization? So I will start this way. I'll start with pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo, then I'll move to pharmacist Zuber, and then I will end with Mr. Ayodeji Alara. Just one-liners, and in 2 minutes each, while we also launch the second poll. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Julie. Something that Yinka said, which I want you to note, what you want to discuss cannot be accommodated within the 1 hour space that you have set for yourself. And they are very, very interesting topics, so we have to note this. Maybe some other time we may need to engage better with a more space. What do I tell the young ones? I have been involved.
Okay. Can we still hear you, sir? Okay.
Seek revelation first, then revenue will follow. The education that you have, the certificate that you have, is just an indication that says the owner of this document, the owner of this certificate, has a body of knowledge to function as a pharmacist. That's all. Now, when it comes to work now, it is, yes, about your knowledge, it is about skill, it is about competencies. And this is what the employer will pay for. So it is important that you seek that revelation, that idea, that knowledge, that skill, that competency, which will eventually bring you the money that we are looking for. Yinka said something about when the multinationals, in quote, left us. I work for Roche, and I know what it was. Let me tell you, they spend so much time and resources training us. Before you join a multinational in those days, before they will allow you to go to the field, you must have spent about 1 or 2 months. That's the truth. For the older ones who are here, they must have spent a lot of time going out. The training manager of the company will even go with you to the field to see that you can do this. What I'm seeing now is that while some of these big companies are still around, how many of them can they take now? So I want to plead with our young ones to find accommodation for themselves in the available space. And in the process, learn, be skillful, be competent, and that will help you to be able to launch out. I just came back from India and I met a lot of young people. I was surprised myself. They kept on asking to meet me. And when they meet me, 32, 33, they already have a factory. They already have something that they are doing. And when you ask about their history, they will tell you, I work as a medical rep somewhere, I work as a market analyst somewhere. And guess what? Some of them are pharmacists. And I see that development, I said, hey, I want to take this back home. The land is green, but you have to pay your due. You have a due. There is a price tag. There is always a price tag. That you are successful, you pay a price for it. Even that you are a failure, there is a price that you pay. This is my message, and I pray and hope that it will land on a fertile soil so that it can germinate and bring forth fruits as we tag along.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, sir. I, like you rightly said, this forum is too short. I would have also shared some personal experiences that helped me in terms of what you've said. You have to make the sacrifice. There's a time for learning. You don't put money first all the time, every time. You have to learn. You have to shadow people, experience people. You have to be in line for mentorships. You have to be humble. It is when you are humble, you will sit with kings. On a good day, how would I be talking with Mr. Pharmacist Lulu Ojo and the likes of Pharmacist Olayinka Zubair, and even Mr. Ayodeji Alara, if I have not gotten to this point? So yes, so that's good talking points, sir. Thank you very, very, very much for your contribution. And now we quickly move to Pharmacist Olayinka Zubair, sir, in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I want to thank my senior colleague, Pharmacist Lulu Ojo. He's spoken excessively well. And my mantra that have guided my development and my career is the fact that as an individual, you have an earning capacity. And what affects your earning capacity, number one, is the need for what you do or the need for what you know. Then the second thing is your capacity to deliver on what is needed. And if you are able to do that, then you could look at it that what is the ease of replacing you? If you can be easily replaced, like most pharmacies that do retail, because they don't identify a need in the retail place where they really want to fit, your earning is capped because you can be easily replaced anytime. So my advice to young people is for you to identify what is it that I really want to do in pharmacy that meets with my passion. And for you to be competent in doing it, you definitely need to be resilient. You need to start from the bottom and grow and learn. Pharmacists who just talked about development that multinational give. The environment has changed. The room in multinational are few. If I'm a young pharmacist today that I need to work, believe me, I will not go to the multinational. The best development phase of my life was when I pioneered Sanofi. I was the product manager, the regulatory affairs manager, the brand analyst. I was the accounting person, and I learned a lot within that space of my working there before I begin to narrow down. The opportunity to learn a lot is even in some of the local company. You do much more than what you are being asked to do. And be resilient. Don't give up. And make sure that you do a continuous growth assessment to be sure that you are growing. A lot of people comes to us here and say, I have 10 years of pharmaceutical marketing. And by the time you see the content they carry, it's a six months old content. So being in the job for a long time does not give you the competence. It is in doing and repeated doing. A rep will not be good if he doesn't see the 10 doctors that he's asked to see every day. He makes mistake, he appraise his last call and say, wow, if I knew I would have done it better, then he repeat it. Then in doing that repeated action, you develop competence. And once competence is developed, to replace you will be difficult because your boss will think twice. If this guy goes, how long will I get somebody that can do his job? So my advice to everyone is be patient, identify that need, make sure you execute to be able to develop the necessary experience to give you the competence. Then you become valued and no one will want to leave you. Thank you very much. It's a very long topic. I love passionately asking me things that I like. Human capital development is an area that I really love. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. You talked about resilience, you talked about competence, you talked about making yourself very, very valuable. You talked about learning. There was something you mentioned in terms of, even the environment you find yourselves. Most people come out of school, they just want to go to the MNCs only, without even trying to see what they can give, even to our now thriving local manufacturing companies and indigent companies, where you can wear many caps and grow and build more thick skin, and you are able to be versatile. That's the word I'm looking for, versatility. Honestly speaking, sir, this forum does not do justice to this. I think the human capital development side will form in the definite in other series of our thought leadership. This is just too much power packed in one session. Thank you so much, pharmacist Lolu. Pharmacist Olayinka Suber. And now let's go to the CEO of PBR Life Sciences. Sir, what do you have for us, Mr. Ayer? In terms of, we have a growing population right now in the pharma space, different sectors of the pharmaceutical industry. What word do we have? What advice do you have for them, sir? Thank you.
Well, I think this is a setup. You cannot get me to talk after my leaders and teachers have spoken. So I don't know what more to say after they have, but since you have forced me to talk, I'll just add something. I noticed every time that pharmacist Olayinka spoke, he called Dr. Lulu his senior colleague. So if Dr. Lulu is pharmacist Olayinka's senior colleague, then for me is my ancestor, legend. So what do I add to this? I think for me, one should not mix up your learning years to your earning years, right? There's a difference, and you must know the difference between both. That is one. Secondly, also is, I think there's an importance for learning and relearning. The industry is changing fast. The world is changing fast. And for many people, you need to go through different seasons, of change. For me, I started with pharma. Then I had to go into medical device, where I had to learn from scratch again in terms of the route to market. Then from medical device, moved into contract research. And at all of them, I had to start from zero, right? So I think really for everybody, for me, really, that's where I see it, that you need to be ready to restart again. The way the world is going, some people need to go and learn data again. Some people need to go and learn tech again. Some people may need to go and learn supply chain, and moving and restarting, because careers can become so obsolete in this world that we are in and in this season. But I really think the core is, do not mistake your learning years from your earning years, and the fact that you can learn from anybody, you can learn from the top and also those below you. Even at the age of 90, you'll still keep learning, So it's a privilege. Again, many thanks to our leaders, Pharmacist Olayinka and Dr. Lulu. It's a pleasure really having you here, sirs.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodeji Alaran, for those words. I think I have picked, do not mix up your learning years from your earning years, because knowledge is something you will take with you anywhere and everywhere you go. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So do we do this? We have actually gone 18 minutes past the time. We wanted to keep it right spot on, but I'm being prompted now that I need to respond to one particular question. Okay. For this question, who do I direct it to? What are the biggest challenges in the consistent collation of data amongst public institutions, especially and even smaller private entities? How do we make electronic collation of data second nature? Oh wow, this is a topic or a series on its own. I'm not sure we will be able to respond to this at the moment, but yes, we need to consider. Thank you to the person that has put this question in. We need to find ways to make electronic data collection is second in nature. What I would say to this will be, look out for the next series. The next series that will bet other thematic areas of this same thought leadership series as well. We will keep in mind this, and then we will be able to, okay, so maybe we should give in, okay, from the back end, Mr. Ayo, I'll give you 2 minutes to respond, sir, if you don't mind, to this question. What are the biggest challenges? It's coming from the Q&A. What are the biggest challenges in the consistent collation of data amongst public institutions, especially and even smaller private entities? How do we make electronic collation of data second nature? Sir, 2 minutes. Thank you.
Those are two questions in one. So I think the major barriers are the degree of technology adoption, right? Especially among government hospitals. But I think it's still better now than it was some 5 years ago. I know there's a lot of, evolution going on in Lagos State, for example. And I think somehow towards ending of last year, there was a circular within the Federal Ministry of Health where the medical directors of all tertiary institutions were required to install softwares in managing their, records and all of that. So it's there's an evolution going on. I think we should be very careful not to overestimate the negatives in pursuing solutions. Yeah. Really, when you go into the market, into the real world, you notice that there's a lot of revolution going on. So I think in terms of barriers, that used to be, but it has really changed in terms of adoption of technology. Another barrier, I think it's is fear, amongst the leaders of those facilities, especially around the laws of data utilization for research, right? So there's a need to educate a lot of these institutional leaders, medical directors, CMACs, and all of that on the benefit of data and how to make use of this data within the law in terms of data protection. But with education and enlightenment, I think many of them will be open to it, especially when you look at the benefit to the public and to the institution as well. So I will stay very positive on this. There will always be barriers. Even in America and the United Kingdom, there are barriers, but there are always solutions to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for doing justice to that question. Thank you very much, sir. So lastly, we have a comment, and I think I really need to read this out from pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo. He said, it's a very good session for the aspiring young ones in our midst. Please note that you do not have to reinvent the wheel. Let us know if you need help. You see, when a big wig and a big experienced person is saying, let us know if you need help, it's a big thing, and I must commend him. I know that there are various platforms in which he officiates, like the Alliance for the Greater Pharmacy. And of course, we've heard that pharmacist Olayinka Zuber is very, very big on human capital development in the pharma space. And yes, PBR will be very, very happy to be the conduit and the connection of all of this. Just reach out to us, and we'll help you reach out to these, industry leads on various aspects when we come to you. So, like they say, time flies when you're having fun. So I think it is already 1:23 minutes past the hour, and we have spent 1 hour 23 minutes on this session, and it has not even felt like we have spent even a minute. So while we share the conclusion poll, I want to use this opportunity to thank every one of us, and then again, a 2-minute charge from pharmacist Ayodeji Alara, just a charge for all of us here while we send in the conclusion poll. Mr. Ayodeji, from on behalf of PBR, how do you wish to, charge the audience? What are the next steps? What should we be expecting on this stage, on this platform after now? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. I want to say very big thank you again, like I keep saying, to our leaders, pharmacist Olayinka Zuber and also pharmacist Dr. Lolu Ojo. It's a pleasure to have you here. In terms of the closing charge, I would say that there's a lot of wealth of wisdom in the industry. We have our leaders with us, they are still there. Let us approach them, and ask questions. I remember sometimes in 2016, 2015, at an event in Abuja, I think it was the PSM fellowship event where new fellows were appointed. And I walked to and pharmacist Olayinka, who was sitting there. And I asked him a certain question, and he gave me an answer. And a lot of that answer today has guided even what I do and what we do in PBR. So let us reach out to the elders of wisdom. There's always wisdom, right? That they have to share. That is one. Number two is let's keep learning. Let's keep challenging, what we've always believed. There's a lot of opportunity out there in terms of products, in terms of data, in terms of partnership, in terms of collaborations, in terms of expansion. And there are more positives than negatives. No matter the environment, like Dr. Luluju said, that even the pharma industry has evolved, over time. We used to have 800 pharmacies back then. Right now, we have 6,000 pharmacies as at December 2022. So the industry is evolving, tech is growing, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. We can only be positive, right? Because opportunity is there. I want to also say that this will get bigger as we go, and I've challenged Truly, she's aware, that we're also looking to have physical events, like this, where we have the industry leaders present in person, and we can walk up to them and ask questions. So thank you so much for joining. I've been challenged myself. I've learned a lot, and I look forward to even learning more within this community.
Okay, well said, sir. We look forward to in fact, I can't wait for us to have a physical one, really, to have, everyone from the industry come together. And thank you for the charge, and then thank you also for the platform. We are indeed really, really grateful for all of this. It is important to note that, in fact, we're going to have the recording out as soon as we are able. And definitely, you would definitely get get the information as soon as the recording is out. So for everyone that joined in, all our guests from all parts of Nigeria, some parts of Africa, and the Europe, we really, really want to say thank you very much for being part of the Pioneer attendees. And who knows, you could be on this stage tomorrow. So please watch out for me. I can be very, very, very aggressive. When I want you, I'll get you. So you could be joining us on this stage in the next series or in the physical event, because we're going to cover across the various generations in the pharmaceutical space. We need to continue to have this discourse. We need to continue to trigger our minds. We need to continue to learn and keep relearning. And there was something Mr. Ayo mentioned, we need to reach out and make sure that we reach out to the people in the industry, for some of these things. As much as technology has advanced, as much as you can, with the snap of your finger, you could click on Google and get any information. Honestly speaking, you cannot take the area of experience away. So that old age adage that says what an elder sees while sitting cannot be seen by a younger one, even if he climbs a tree, also speaks to bear. So we are also going to be a conduit to bring all the pharmacy sector together, all the technical groups, and definitely will continue this discourse for a better pharma industry and a data-driven, thriving businesses for each and every one of us. So I want to thank the PBR team for putting this together. A lot of thanks to our sales director at the back end, Olayinka Stephen, Oluyika Stephen, I'm so sorry. There's a lot of Yinka around me right now. So I'm getting a bit confused. So thank you to our sales director. Thank you to the entire analyst, and thank you to the MSD team of Pharma Business Review, Genevieve, Ayomide, Akinwumi at the back end supporting. My name is Julie Wale Ajayi. I work with PBR. We are here to support you to make data-driven decisions. Now the time is now. We are here for you. So thank you to all our panelists. I want to say thank you so, so much, and hope to see you in the next session. Have a good day. Bye-bye.